Yo, what's good people? Today we have a patch. I've literally just got back from the gym and I see Raven has some quality of life changes. So today what we're going to do is break down those few quality of life changes that Raven received. Do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, like will help with the algorithm. Commenting will also help with the algorithm. And subscribing will let me know that you enjoy the content. Let's get into it. Okay, so here we have the patch notes. I'm going to scroll down to Raven. So Raven has 3 changes. Now, I don't know this middle one, what this really affects. I mean, the wording makes it seem like it's a natural hit combo, which it isn't. So that's very strange. But maybe the hitbox of the move from this particular string, the last teleport kick that launches, maybe that was weird. But I didn't really face any problems with this move, so I'm not really sure what to look out for. But it states that adjusted the collision detection with the opponent to reduce instances where the third hit would miss after the second hit connects. So it seems like if back turn 3-4 hits, the teleport would sometimes whiff depending on axis. I don't know. Yeah, so we're going to focus on while standing 3+4 or while rising 3+4. So it's been buffed. Expanded the hitbox downward to reduce the occurrence of whiffing for certain moves. Now, I think certain stances or certain attacks would mid-crush this attack or mid-evade this attack. So this is a buff for us. Very nice quality of life change. I mean, I don't recall anyone flagging any issues with the move, but it's nice to see that they haven't forgotten about the character in a patch full of, you know, bug fixes, because these patches from I think 1.6 onwards are not going to contain any major balancing. So we can see small scale balance adjustments, damage reduction for Dragunov and Nina. So we might see something with Raven in September, but I'm not too sure. So during Soul Zone, holding down. Now this is a great quality of life change because a lot of players had issues with buffering Soul Zone teleports, specifically down, white hole into full crouch. When you do a Soul Zone transition, so for example, down back to 1 into Soul Zone or 1-2 into Soul Zone, a lot of the times you couldn't just hold down into white hole into full crouch, if that makes sense. So you could do down back 2-1 Soul Zone and hold the direction if it was up or back, so into neutral or into back turn, but this did not work for into full crouch, which was very strange. And so sometimes a lot of people would try to go for a mix-up after a punish, for example, like down back 2-1 into Soul Zone, and they would hold down and the transition wouldn't come out into full crouch. So the fact that they've allowed this to be buffered, you can literally just hold down now. So that's a very, very good quality of life change. So we're going to jump into game so I can show you what these quality of life changes look like in game. Okay, so the first change Raven received is Soul Zone down can now be buffered or held, because before, like if for example we do down back 2-1 into Soul Zone, you couldn't hold down like this. You had to like wait to press down, whereas like you could do that with every other direction. So you could just see how early I'm holding up and it still teleports. See? Whereas you couldn't do this with down, but you can do that now. So you can buffer down. That is a very good quality of life change. And I know a lot of Raven players were asking for that before. Like you can just hold down now. Whereas before, sometimes I would actually drop mix-up potential. Like for example, like this. You can buffer it now, which is really nice. Whereas before, I used to do this and the teleport wouldn't come out. He would just stand there doing this. Okay, the second change is he got a buff on the hitbox of while standing 3+4. Now you can do QCF 3+4 while standing 3+4 from crouch. It is a while standing input. So you can just do it from crouch dash. But this move is very good. And I think this move is underrated as a heat engager attack. And obviously as a homing attack because it is -12. I'm going to show you the frames. Yeah, so this move is -12, but it has a lot of pushback. Just because of the animation of the move. So it's very difficult to punish. So I recommend for you guys to try this move out, especially if you don't have a good kind of power mid, you know, because QCF1 is not as strong as it was in T7. So he doesn't really have a power mid because I mean, this is -14, right? Link can actually launch this move. So this move is not good in this matchup as a raw 50-50 in terms of being safe. Whereas this one is, and it's a launcher if you commit to the heat dash like this. So if I commit to the heat dash, this is going to launch. I'm going to take her off block. So this actually launches. So this is a very good move to use, I would say. So for example, sometimes what I like to do after Soul Zone 4 is 3+4 because a lot of people like to step now because they don't want to get hit with while standing 2 or while standing 4. So you can just step out of the way, right? So what I like to do to counter it is 3+4 on a hard read. Sometimes characters like Ling or Lily or evasive characters, they could actually crush and launch this attack with some attacks. AOP, for example, was the perfect stance to evade this move. So what I'm going to do is Soul Zone 4, 3+4, and see if AOP still crushes this move. Yeah, so AOP is crushing less. Now, it does crush further away. So I'm not sure. I don't actually know how this move performed before the patch in this situation. I just know this is very good for crushing. This is still being crushed while standing 4, even though they buffed this move to not be crushed, which just doesn't make sense. But yeah, this move is less likely to be crushed. Now, it is unsafe. That's the only problem. But yeah, this move received a hitbox buff. Okay, another famous crushing situation was Lee's slide. Now, sometimes when Lee did slide point blank, Raven could not punish him optimally. While standing forward with sometimes, while standing one with sometimes, depending on range. Now, let's test 3+4 because I'm pretty sure his slide evaded 3+4 on recovery. So we're going to do slide and test it. So we're going to test Lee's slide. So you can see it's -15, right? So this is not actually going to be a punish, but it doesn't get crushed. And I believe this actually was being crushed before, weirdly. So I think they did adjust it, clearly, because it's in the patch notes. But I don't think it's super substantial as a kind of quality of life change. I mean, it's nice to know that Raven hasn't been forgotten because, you know, these patches leading up to Season 2 will not have major balance changes. For me, I personally don't see them releasing Heihachi and the last Season 1 DLC character with no changes at all. I just don't see them doing that. So they might tweak those characters. But apart from those characters, yeah, we're not going to see any kind of major balancing. So it's good to know that Bandai Namco have not forgotten about Raven, because I still feel like he's lacking a kind of power mid, you know, in QCF1, or they're just very risky to kind of commit to. Even QCF1 counter launch. I mean, I've made a video all about this. His lows are pretty good, but I just think in certain matchups, this low is not good. I mean, it's a good low, but it's very matchup dependent, I think, this low, and what you can get away with and stuff like that. Like Lee, for example, can do Hopney on most of the options. I can do this to bait out Hopney, but, you know, this, he beats escape parry, he beats just everything that I do, like, you know, back turn 1, for example. So there's a lot of options that a lot of characters can option select. And if you don't want to go for like a risky option select, you can just do generic low, which is a universal option select for this low. If you didn't know, that's the last time I'm going to tell you that, because people don't listen to me when I tell them about anti-Raven. But anyway, I still feel like Raven needs a back turn down 4 buff, because it's very, very difficult to condition people with back turn with no low threat that's not launch on block, because it's like, okay, cool, you can take a few of these lows. If this did something on counter hit, maybe it would be more of a threat, but I think just this being +4 still doesn't change the fact that you can step this, you know? So I still feel like his low threat isn't that good from back turn anymore. I still think he needs back turn down 4 buff, and I don't think this should be launch on block at all. I think this should be -14 on block. I would even go as far to say I would take away the counter hit launch, because I barely ever get this on counter hit anyway. I like to use this as kind of like a power low, but I don't think it should be -16 on block. It should be -14 in my opinion, because it's only +2 on hit, right? So it's like there's not really much I can do. You can still mash me out of this with crouch jab, for example. I still think he needs a slight while standing punishment buff, because right now all we get with, you know, I11, 12, and 13 is while standing 4. So it's really kind of like you can abuse lows on Raven a lot. -14 lows, obviously he can launch, but I think this would be nice to be a 13 frame punisher at like 0 on hit or +1, because right now this is -2 on hits, which is kind of insane. But I think this move being I13 will be really good for his punishment. Just a few extra points of damage, because this does 18, right? So 6 extra points of damage for a 13 frame punish. Even make it like 26 damage at 0 on hit. This will be a really, really good change, I think, for Raven. And then I think QCF1 receiving a buff like a hit confirm window, or speed this move up. If you speed this move up a little bit, make it so right now the frames are 24. So if you made this move like I21 maybe, or I22, just speed it up by a few frames. This will be really, really useful. And maybe reduce the damage. If you speed it up, reduce the damage by 3. Just make it 30 damage. I think this will be a really, really good power low as a substitute for QCF1, because I don't ever think we're going to get that move back. What I also think is you could give Soulzone a crouch dash transition. That'd be really, really sick for mobility and movement and not feeling as stiff. Because I feel like Soulzone just isn't a good stance. The low is launch on block. Doesn't have good plus frames for how much you risk. And the mids are slow. I think the mids are quite slow. They're not really threatening because the low's not threatening. If the low was significantly more threatening or safer, I would be more inclined to use this move, but it's just not. So yeah, I still think Raven's in a kind of very, very low mid spot. I still think it's workable for sure. We've seen a few players putting in work like Shaoling, Hayes, Pinya, so they're still doing their thing, which is good to see. But I still think he could do with a few kind of quality of life changes. The character's too focused around heat, and even heat, I still don't think his heat is like super sick. I think it's overrated. That's another topic for another video. These are Raven's changes. Hope you enjoyed. Peace.